Helmet's done. I love the helmet. Time to work on the jetpack. I hand modeled all of this, right? And it turned out perfect. Or at least as close to perfect as I can get. Printed it in a bunch of different parts. Right? We have a thruster housing, thruster cap. Entertainingly, the thruster cap had a pretty bad layer shift, but I'm using that as a spacer to even everything out. The thruster itself, and I love these little details. The wings that hold the thrusters in place, and I want them to go dead center, and so it covers the line exactly. I think that adds a little more depth, a little more, there's more going on than just what's on the top. The nose cone, which like I said earlier is just the, I've already started sanding it. I got excited. I wanted to see it. Just the nose of the Arcadia. And it had these two fin-like things on it, right? Which is where this came from. Which just kind of reminds me of a grill of a car. I thought that was neat. It made me laugh. The bottom and the top. So when I modeled these, I modeled them with 1/2-inch holes. But when you print, they're slightly undersized, and that was relatively intentional because wooden dowels are just a hair under 1/2 inch, and it's got room for squeeze out when I put glue in. Had I used actual just straight wooden dowels, there'd be no room for the glue to go anywhere. So I got dowels. And they're everywhere. Every single piece has a bunch of them to pin it together. I'm not sure if I'm cutting an axis panel in the back of this one. Boba Fett's had that, but that's so you could attach things. You know, so the thrusters could pop off and on and off. Mine doesn't have that issue, so I don't know yet. We're gonna save that one piece for last probably. But the next step is sanding, and we're gonna sand everything. Everything gets sanded. I hate sanding, but you know, we're gonna do it. And that's where we're at. Sanding. Everything's getting sanded. I'm using a palm sander at 220. I start at 220. There's no point, you know. This is plastic and it's already pretty smooth. I don't think I need anything rougher than 220. In fact, I'm probably just going to use 220 the whole time. I have a rotary tool in case I have to get into weird areas that the sander doesn't want to. Everything gets sanded, and then we'll see where we're at that point. But first, everything gets sanded. That thing's loud. I'm gonna wear I'm gonna wear hearing protection. Should probably put on a dust mask. For respirator. I don't think I actually have any dust masks in here, so you use what you got. I'm pretty happy with that. There's a couple spots that I'll probably have to come in and, you know, hand file, but for the most part, this piece is done. So we're just going to follow the journey of this one right now until we get to the other stuff. Glazing putty. It's always next. I'm not going to thin it out. I'm not going to do any of that weird stuff. I'm just going to put a thin layer of glazing putty over the whole thing. Again, I'm trying to rub it in as much as I can. I want as little glazing putty on here as possible. And it's already going on super smooth. Prep work always makes this part so much easier. The better I sand it, the less glazing putty I need, and the better the whole process comes out. I'm very happy with how this is turning out. I'm trying not to get any in the vents up here. It's going to be relatively difficult because, you know, I need to go all around the vents, and the vents are super there. For whatever that means. Still not sure what color I want to do this, right? Most Mandalorians, their helmets tend to have lots of images, lots of imagery on it, but everything else tends to be relatively subdued, and I'm not quite sure how I want to handle that. I'm probably going to prime everything and just make it all gray, or silver maybe. That way when I do add weathering to it, I'll be able to just, go off of that. And it is getting weathered. So is the helmet. But it's all getting weathered at the end and all together. I want to make sure all the weathering is consistent. The only way to really do that is to do it all at once. Trying to do this all put together with the oh my goodness, that would be brutal. I did that with FETs, and I think that was a mistake. I should have taken everything apart, finished everything, and then put it together. I was in a rush. And it was my first jetpack. I was kind of excited to, see where we're gonna go. But this is the right way to do it. Each piece is getting individually taken care of. Each piece is getting all put together. Except for the backpack, which is going to get glued and done as one solid piece. Because it's supposed to look like one solid piece. It looks so much nicer. Smooth. It's going to be easy to lightly sand and just be done. So there are a couple of spots here where I've got a little bit of texture. I wouldn't quite call them layer shifts. Because it just, it's probably an extrusion error more than a layer shift. Under extrude for a couple seconds. I'm probably doing absolutely nothing to the front here. That's a lot of detail. I could have printed this whole top piece as a resin piece that snapped in place, but I'm trying to keep the amount of resin I have on this to a bare minimum. The resin I use is not overtly robust. And I've seen too many armor pieces just shatter to be willing to chance that. I don't want to be at a troop and have my armor completely just destroy on me, right? Self-destruct. Luckily this stuff shrinks when it dries, when it cures. So all the extra detail that I'm missing here is going to come right back. Alright. Now we're going to get all of the rest of the pieces. Well, maybe not. We're going to get a bunch of the individual pieces up to this point, and we'll continue on from there. So I'll see you in a couple seconds. For me, it'll probably be a week or so. See you in a bit. Big decisions to make. This looks pretty good. If you notice there's some dark lines in here. Here, check this out. You can see it most on these round ones. All these dark lines everywhere. That's a low spot. A couple things about glazing putty. When you put it on, after you sand, all this pink, these are low spots from the first sanding. And all these darker spots are low spots from this time. So the goal is to get everything a nice even color. This is where I would normally spray it to see where we're at. But in actuality, it's just to move on to the next step. I'm not going to do that this time. Everything. I still need to figure out what I want to do about these lines. I may leave them all kind of jaggedy and beat up a little bit. Or I may come in here with a file. I don't know yet. But like this, if you look all these, because if you look at the model, you can see how it kind of indents. I want to round that out a little bit. That was a 3D issue. It's totally on me. I should have taken a little more time, but that could be the channel. I should have taken a little more time. So next step, since we've sanded these all down, coat everything again in glazing putty and do another sanding. We are almost there. I glued the two halves together. I was going to try and figure out whether I wanted to put some kind of a panel or something in the back. Kim's like, yeah, but if you're going to do that, you can do it afterwards anyway. Dremel will cut whether it's glued or not. And I'm like, good point. We've also started sanding. That's where we're at now. We're going to sand the heck out of this, make it smooth, cover it in glazing putty, and see where we're at. But while I was doing this, it occurred to me, well, I knew it didn't really occur to me. Having just this one spot for the thrusters to lock into, I didn't like that. So I printed these cool little triangular pieces. So that's going to snap on, and then this is going to be like that, which is kind of neat. It harkens back to Boba Fett's helmet. But that's way more secure, except for that. But it's going to be glued in later. But I like that. I think that's neat. I haven't decided whether I want it flat or angled up, since there's a left and a right. I may go with it angled up, so this angle matches this angle. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But these pieces need to be covered in glazing putty. This piece needs to be picked up off the floor. Yeah, these need to be covered in glazing putty. And then this needs to be smoothed and then also covered in glazing putty. That's where we're at. These lines don't match up perfectly. They never will. Two halves rarely match. But with this, with the arm on top of it, it'll probably be right about here, actually. Maybe a little lower, a little higher, somewhere around there. That's going to cover everything. But that's where we're at. Sanding. Seems to be where we're always at. So I'll see you in a bit. At a point where we need to start priming these pieces. Except I think this needs to be attached. The venting needs to be attached to the body. Body's got this huge gap in the back. But that goes in the back plate, so it doesn't really matter. But there's these gaps here where I didn't quite line the model up right. I'm going to need to sand that. I want to split the difference and then build this up a little bit. So I think that's where we're at first, is gluing. So this is tough, right? Because I want to get everything painted and primed. And I have to decide whether this little gap here bothers me or not. And I think once everything's all together, it's not going to be a big deal. I meant to shrink this down so this edge lined up with this edge, and then I forgot. And then I kept modeling it, and then I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I really like that. And then I put them together, and I'm like, son of a gun. There's so many polys on these that putting them together just... I think we're at the stage where we glue this together and smooth this off. So that's what I'm going to do now. Easy process. I have a bunch of locating dowels. I've already traced the outline of where everything goes, so I know where I need to glue things at. But I definitely want to prime before I put everything back together, because there's a lot. And I don't want to overdo it with the glue this time. And since I have locating pins, I can just walk away. Instead, we're going to prime the nose cone and then all the thruster bits. In fact, I could probably prime everything except for that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to prime everything except for the body. The body still has more work. Everything else is good to go. So, on to priming. These are perfect. I absolutely love how they look. It's fantastic. These also came out perfect. Now, these 4 pieces, because I'm still trying to figure out color schemes for this. I know As I Go is probably the worst way of doing it, but I know I want these to be the same Beskar that the back plate is. So before I do anything, spray in those Beskar. So that's what we're doing now. These look fantastic. I love that color. Wasn't sure what color I want to paint everything else. Then I found this. It's a roof accessory paint. Weathered wood. It's got kind of a French gray look to it. I think it's kind of neat. We're going to give it a shot. If I don't like it, I can always repaint it. And we're going to start with the thruster housings. Then I can put everything together and see how it looks. So next step, paint these with this. This looks fantastic. I've already sprayed the rest of the base in that. I really like how that looks. I want these to be in that metallic red I've got up there. So to do that, again, metal cast base coat. The arms, these are going to be in gold. I think it'll pop nice. The arms, all 4 of them, get base coated in this. This is my absolute favorite part of this whole process, painting. I love painting. These I've chromed. It's the base silver, and they're going to be redded, just like that. Redded. They're going to be painted red, just like the helmet. But I want these angled pieces to be gold. I'm not sure if I want to do the gold before or after the red. I'm probably going to do it after, which means these get 4 or 5 coats of that red. I'm just doing the metal cast red. I think the lighter red will look much better with this French gray I've got going on. I hit that with a little black, that way when I paint the rest of it, because I'm doing the top in Beskar, or from here up in Beskar. So once I paint that, the black will really add a bit of depth. It's pre-weathering, since it's such a hard to get into area. I may do something similar with the venting. I'm not quite sure yet. But that'll be dry brushing. So that's after the fact. But next, we paint all of these silver pieces in the red. So I'm not overtly happy with how it's turning out. Color-wise, shape is perfect. I absolutely love how it looks. The shape is fantastic. Colors, a little lackluster. So I've taped off a couple of things, sprayed a couple of things, good testing stuff, right? And I think this will hopefully satiate my because it was all kind of blending together. It'll look like it was all basically one thing. I think I'm much happier with that. I'm going to set everything up kind of how it's supposed to be. Then we're going to see how everything looks. So the red peeled a little bit on this side. Not a big deal. They'll just become, weathering. But I really like that. These are going to be painted gold. So that'll bring the gold in from the helmet. I'm going to have a lot of accenting in silver once that's weathered a bit more. I may put, I don't know, something here, because this is supposed to be right there. And this is supposed to be right about there. And that kind of makes this bottom part a little empty. I think that's the most annoying and intricate tape job I've done in a really long time. And had I realized I was going to do this, I'd have done it before I put the 2 pieces together. Painting these gold. We're now at all the fiddly bits, all the little detail pieces that need to be painted and pulled apart. No idea when my battery stopped. Where we're at now, I've got everything painted, It's all light detailed stuff, right? This seems a little plain to me. I'm so tempted to put like a gold filigree up and down it. I think that's just gilding a little too much. All of the little bits should be done at this point. I want to print out a little like bow tie piece for the bottom. It seems like all of them have that kind of shape to it, and I like the circle, but I want to do that in resin. I may add a couple of resin bits up on top. I think the only thing I'm going to do, because the more I think about it, the more I just want that bottom bit, and then that's it. Because I think we're on to clear. It's now time to put everything together. This part kind of terrifies me, but we're going to start simple. We're going to start easy. Just going to put the thrusters together. And since this one isn't coming out, we're going to assume it's already glued. Each thruster, I'm going to sand the bottom part. I'm using 80 grit for this because I'd like to get back to straight PLA, but the bottom hasn't had really anything done to it. Just like the inside hasn't had anything done. These 3 tabs go up front, so I'm just going to put some glue in on the bottom and on the sides here. Just goes in. I'm going to leave it upright for a bit. It seems every time glue kind of spills, it's because I've done something stupid to it. So for this one, same thing, but we're doing the cap first. I could have taped this off and just not painted it. Luckily, the inside of this stuff should be pretty untouched. Wrong end. I meant to put this end in, which goes in on the bottom. That's alright. Same thing with this. Once everything is together, it's also going to get a couple coats of clear. So it's not like this is the only clear it's going to get. We'll put the nose or thruster cone on. We just leave it for a minute. So I'm going to bring you around so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, I'm not gluing this onto I'm not gluing the arm onto the body yet. I'm just using it to prop this arm up in place so I can mark everything. And I'm going to carefully score everywhere I want to remove paint. Then I'm going to also very carefully pop that off. And I've got a nice score line. The inside here doesn't have much paint to it, so I'm not terribly worried. But here, I definitely want to hit these corners. So what I'm lining up here is I'm lining this line, the very edge of this black, along the center line. But this is slightly tapered, so as long as I'm close, it's going to be hard to tell the difference at a distance anyway. And then I just score. And the scoring is solely so I know where to, sand. Right? It's a nice, clear indication. Well, I can see it, don't know if you can. The hard part on this is going to be using a minimal amount of glue so it doesn't run. I may tape it. Tape should help. So I'm going to do this to both of these, and then we'll pick up right after that. A little bit of blue tape and we are good to go. Now for the top bumpers. I think right there is where I want it. I kind of like where that is. Instead of scoring it, I'm just going to put a piece of tape there. And since this is a 90-degree corner, as long as I measure down and put the tape on the same side on the other side, they should be completely symmetric. And I need it at exactly 2 inches. Wow. Same process. Tape all around this, scuff up the paint, glue it in place. It's the last bit that needs to be glued. Get kind of emotional here. I'm working on this stupid thing for a while now. But right now, I need to rough up these areas and then we're going to paint. So, that's where we're at. This part I've been dreading. Because I need to hold everything in place and glue and hope everything stays in place. It should be fine. It should be fine. But I have found smearing everything a little bit definitely helps with preventing runs. And even with Accelerator, this stuff takes a while to dry. I originally wanted to put registration marks everywhere, so everything would properly lock into place. And I'm very glad I didn't, because being able to move these around to where I think I want them, way more useful. That seemed to work decently. That should hopefully hold things in place. We'll let the glue cure for a while. It's only been about 15 minutes. I'm going to leave the tapes holding things in place, but I'm going to pull all the rest of it off. All right. Get a little bit. Everything's been glued together. Look at this thing. I absolutely love how this turned out. It's amazing. I'm not as happy with the back plate. The back plate has that seam across the back here. This one, it's relatively noticeable. All the way up until you put the jetpack on. Suddenly it's, oh. I am so happy with how that turned out. It's turning out way better than I thought it would. And I thought it turned out pretty okay. But, oh my goodness, do I love it. The red, the black, oh. I'm super happy with this. It's, let's prop you up a bit. It turned out fantastic. It needs to be weathered. Weathering is going to happen later. When I have most of everything done, I'm going to weather it all together. That way, it's a uniform weathering. I don't get too heavy-handed in one thing and light-handed on the other. But my goodness, does it look good. Ending a video is weird, by the way. You have to figure out how to sum everything up and then tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. But as such, you know, like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe share. Sharing is caring. It turned out very good, and I'm very happy with it. Like I said, I'm using this particular kit as therapy to try to get over 3D printing on costumes. I have a problem with it. It's my problem, not the process's problem. You know, we'll get there. If you want to see when we do get there, maybe think about, you know, liking and subscribing. I have other videos, by the way. Yeah, the rest of the Mandalorian build, and then, you know, whatever they think you like the best. But I absolutely love this. It turned out fantastic. So I guess that's it. I'll see you next time.